My microphone got unplugged, chat. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical. Call me the Warhammer official YouTube channel because we had audio issues, but we're good now. We're ready to go. Does Captain have a golden ticket? That's an actually really good question. I don't know. But that segues me into the sponsor for the live stream. Thank you so much for the question, Kevin, because that's a super good question. It's probably worth taking a peek at. Captain.com, by the way, is a it is a holistic gaming convention, and it runs a bunch of games, including miniature games, board games, role-playing games, tabletop stuff, and tournaments for a bunch of them, including a Age of Sigmar and 40K GT. Which I guess, so here's, let's see, we can find the all the info on their website, and I guess we can look. Warhammer 40K events. It has tournament. It's hosted by Away Games, by the way, who we love. Let's see if they say anything about golden ticket. If they don't, I assume they, all right. It doesn't say that they have a golden ticket, so I assume that they don't. I would, yeah, I would assume that that is the case, but that's going down January 30th through February. I think it's February 2nd, actually. It says February 1st here, but is it 2nd? Is that the correct day there in February? January, February 1st. Oh, no, it is February 1st. Yeah. So January 30th through February 1st. And that's going to have just a bunch of good stuff. Hit the wrong button again. Just a bunch of good events that you can go hang out and take place with. I absolutely love Captain Con. We go every year. It's in Warwick, Rhode Island. So it is a little snowy, but the venue is always extremely nice. It's in a Crown Plaza, which has like a huge sort of main gaming area. And so you get all the games together, and it's just an enormous, it's a super fun time because there's usually like a couple hundred War Machine Horde players there. There's a couple hundred Warhammer players there between sort of open play as well as all of the tournaments. And then you can also, there's a huge board game room as well. There's like an enormous kind of a dining hall, essentially. They put up a board game library. And the cool thing is that they have a system called the Captain's Log, where the more games you play, the vendors that you visit and you play demos and events, you get basically Chuck E. Cheese points, essentially. You can fill out this Captain's Log that gives you points, and you can redeem the points for like prizes. So like miniatures, exclusive swag, board games that you all get for free just for participating in everything. So go check them out. Link in the video description. Coupon code TT2026 gets you 10% off your badge. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Anyway, it's Warhammer stream all over again. Indeed, chat. Indeed. I wanted to talk today about some smaller table games. An interesting thing happened this weekend, I think largely because there were so many highly enfranchised 40K players that had gone to World Championships. We had many events that are like this one that were billed as two-day GT events that didn't have a huge number of players. And I want to talk about those. We had some interesting results. I actually didn't know. I don't know if I look at this one. Who won this one? Chaos Knights. Hell yeah. But we have all these Tyranid lists that are doing pretty well at these smaller tables. We have found the place for Tyranids to win, and it's maybe not World Championships, but it is sort of top of the smaller events. And that's what I want to sort of dive into today. So there's a couple of those I want to talk about. There's a couple of really funny lists I want to talk about. And I also I want to throw a shout out to this event, which I guess went down. This one was being sponsored by Best Coast Pairings. And every time I've logged into the Best Coast Pairings for the last like month, I've been staring at this event. And it's for a game called, which is, I think, thematically appropriate. It's for a game called Shardbugs that I guess is like a collectible card game. And they ran a $10,000 championship, and they had 30 people sign up, which is not quite as auspicious as you would expect for $10,000. The winner, Dakota Roberts, I guess, won $5,000 in cash, which is wild. That's absolutely crazy. But now that event's over, I'm excited not to have to look at it on the BCP homepage anymore. Apparently, if assuming BCP doesn't just crash right now, which is, I guess, what's happening currently. But speaking of bugs, there you go. I think I really want to talk about this orc list. Y'all ready for the greatest orc list I've ever seen in my life? Johnny Mars drop pods are bad.
$2 Canadian through Super Chat. Drop
Are
pods
they?
are bad. Who
Are
would
they
have
bad?
thought?
I mean, they're like annoying. Don't talk about Thousand Suns having the best win percentage at Worlds. We did talk about that a little bit, and I do have Thousand Suns to talk about. Some very, very spicy Thousand Suns. So there we go. BCB also apparently the Warhammer stream. Yeah. We're Warhammer revealing the results of these tournaments, I guess. Here's my favorite orc list of all time. Who's ready for this? It's from the Nailhammer 9 2K 2-day tournament. The winner was Ed Heapy. He won with orcs, and I said, ooh, orcs. I'm excited to see what he won with. The answer is lots and lots of orcs. Perfect. That's all we need, really. This is the kind of chicanery we get at Smaller Table 40K. We're under less scrutiny. People just put random shit into their list submission, I guess. So, anyway, that's what's going on over there. Not going to say money laundering. That is some serious accusations to level, I think, Games Workshop live stream. Yeah, I do wonder how much your production team cost, because I hope it wasn't that much. Is it Green Tide? Great question. Could also be a war horde of orcs. No one will know. But more realistically, if we head on over, speaking of away games, our friends over at Away Games ran the Fall In event this weekend, which I almost went to because it's actually not too far away from me. I'm glad I didn't, though, because World Finals was really fun to watch, and I had a very productive weekend. So it was good. However, I almost came to this event, and it was won by Tyranids. So that's sick. This is a 5-round event. It did only have 20 players, so not quite. I think it ended up only with like 17 actually playing. So there were several drops, not like really. Personally, I consider 20 plus that goes to 1-5-0 to be kind of the cusp of GT level. There's a lot of different opinions about that. Some people say 28, some people say 32. Some people don't care about the player count. I don't know. It's sort of all up in there. For best armies in 40K, I only look at events that ran at least 20 players at the very least. So we didn't talk about this list in particular, but it did win. John did some work here with Subterranean Assault, which it seems like, beyond what Sam Pope's doing over there in World Championship land, it seems like that's where everyone's going, which I think makes a ton of sense. It's really fun to play, and it gives you a lot of additional consistency. Heyo, what's up?
Johnny Mars donated $5 Canadian through Super Chat. WCW had a bunch of the orc terrain from Kill Team and used it for actual 40K.
So that's just US
general.
Open.
It fit.
That's just the US
emoji,
Open stuff.
Smiley face emoji.
Chance. If you look at my games from Nova, which used the USO terrain sets, they also used those same terrain features at Nova. So, for example, I can pull up a photograph. I have photographic evidence. For example, sometimes it gives me a very tiny picture. There it is. Here is what I played on at Nova Open. That's just something that they do. I don't know. It is what it is. It's a little short, I think, obviously. And we did talk about how some of the PCs might be 4 inches or smaller, so you could actually like use Fulgrim on them. Yeah, that's just US Open stuff. I don't really like these terrain features. I think that I think they're short, so tree line of sight blocking doesn't really work. And I think that for stuff that isn't infantry, obviously, that's less of an issue typically, unless you're trying to curtail the towering keyword, which, to be fair, I think should happen. But I kind of feel like the towering keyword might just need to be curtailed mechanically. I don't know. I do have some problems with that mechanic. However, the issue as well is that the big floors are really obnoxious. No one uses those things to stand models on. They're just there for aesthetics, basically. And they just make the terrain features really annoying to play with. So I don't like that. Obviously, I might be biased because I'm sitting here with a bunch of big monsters or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. That's just one of the terrain sets I use at USO. It's not quite as common as the regular like Imperial Ruin one. I think it's maybe only like 10 or 20% of the tables have these. But yeah, that's just been how it's been for the last like 2 or 3 years. So I don't know. It's not particularly. That's not exactly news. Anyway, moving on from there. Yeah, we're talking about Tyranids. Tyranids have 3 viable lists: Termagant, Subterranean Assault, and Invasion Fleet with 2 Maleceptors. I think you'll find something involving Norns is in there as well. Potentially Crusher Stampede. That's what Tyler Pied keeps doing. Which he won a GT with the other day, which was great. Pretty cool. So this version in particular is running a Neurotyrant. Now, here's an interesting thing is that I've been seeing fewer and fewer Tyranid lists. I think this one is running Zoanthropes. So that we can use Enfilading Emergence on them. We are running Zoanthropes. And in that case, I think you're supposed to run the Neurotyrant, so you can pump them out, shoot something to death, get +1 to hit, and then -1 their whole army with your Shadow in the Warp for the sort of the follow-up turn to blunt the follow-up attack. That's typically the play pattern you're trying to engage with. You want to set up a situation where you can skirmish early, and then you can dig your teeth into something big. You fully commit, kill it, shadow their army, so their return attack is not very good, and then you get another turn of activating into them. That's the hope, so that we can actually kill people. But as we've been seeing with, for example, Sam Pope's list at World Championships, he did not run a Neurotyrant at all, which is fascinating because it feels like the army's or the Codex is kind of built around the Neurotyrant. However, more lists have been leaving it at home, which I think is really interesting. They've just been saving that 100 points and playing other HQs or other characters. We've got double Gargoyles for the shoot and scoot out of a hole, which is great. We've got a Biovore, a double Haruspex, a good delivery system for Haruspexes. They are a little bit slow, as we talked about with the Crusher Stampede list that did well at WCW. But obviously when you can 6-inch deep strike them, they go pretty hard. And then you get rerolls on all your charges. That's a big thing for 1 command point, which is very exciting. We have double Maleceptor, a Psychophage for the AP bonus. That actually kind of turbocharges the Haruspexes, which is interesting. So you can get them to AP2 on their little claw attacks. Because otherwise they're just AP1. They can get biffed by Armor of Contempt or high base armor saves. However, you ping that +1 AP, suddenly it's a big AP3 mouth attack, and then, or I forget which one's which, whatever. The little attacks go to AP2, the big attacks go to AP3. And then suddenly you start to get pretty serious damage out of these guys. For 125 points, if we can combo them together, they can actually do some serious work. We get double Maleceptors in there as well that we can dump in the middle of the table. And then a bunch of Rabbiters and stuff, little guys. Tyrannofex with a Rupture Cannon, Von Ryan Sleepers, Zoanthropes, double Raveners. Now, the interesting thing about these is that I'm so curious because I do wonder if these styles of Subterranean Assault do run into problems with like sort of dealing with screening units. The Maleceptors can do it a little bit. I guess you could commit the Haruspexes into it, but I don't know where the damage from your army really comes from besides those. But I guess the Zoanthropes. Maybe it's just we just do it with Zoanthropes. But it feels like to me that there are situations where Subterranean Assault can kind of fall apart if you just have an MSU army where they don't have anything big to get stuck into. And if you expose your Zoanthropes, I would say in typically most of the CA 2025 terrain layouts, they will just be picked up by shooting on the crackback, depending on what your opponent's matchup looks like. So in some cases, in some terrain layouts, you do have enough terrain features where the Zoanthropes can actually emerge and shoot something at close range and then not die, like sort of protect themselves in the crackback. Chapter Proof 2025 tends to have these big open lines of sight. So if you engage along one sight line, you oftentimes will just get hit counterattack, especially with Zoanthropes, which do not use 40K's line of sight rules particularly well, because one thing that they do is that they have a bunch of big, huge bases. And so without like protruding bits they can use for line of sight. So typically the whole unit has to kind of like push out in order to see. And this army is basically all gas. So I'm interested in like, if you were to run into a army with just a bunch of little guys, what comes out to fight them? I imagine it's the Maleceptors, and then we try to counterattack with the Haruspexes. And we just tank with the Maleceptors, but that's an interesting thing. The Psychophage can scream. Somebody's running 2 blocks of Zoanthropes. We did talk about a list a while ago that was running double Zoanthropes as well as double Hive Tyrants. It was the Swarmlord plus the standard Foot Hive Tyrant in Subterranean Assault, and I think that list is wild. And that was running 2 Zoanthrope units. So we could fuel multiple instances of enfilading immersions with all of the free strats that we got and the extra CP. So that's pretty fascinating. But it's not the only Tyranid list that we saw doing fairly well. I do want to talk about, let's talk about this Rollback Cup. This was in, where is this being played? Slovakia. First of all, that's fucking sick. Welcome. What's up, Slovakia? How's it going? This was won by Chaos Knights. How many despoilers do you think we get? 3 despoilers. Wow. What a time to be alive. That's truly incredible. 3 despoilers. Amazing. All of them with double Gatling cannon. Neat. Fair enough. Well, we looked at that list. Let's look at this Tyranid list. It is technically undefeated. It is used, however, differential scoring. Look at these scores, by the way. 18-20, 2 huge fucking wins. Everything else was a draw. Now, a draw in this context means that you scored within 5 victory points of your opponent, because if you win by 6 or more, you get an 11-9 victory. And it doesn't matter how many raw points you score. That only matters for tiebreakers. So it only matters how many points you score in contrast with your opponent. So the goal is to beat your opponent by the maximum amount. And in 2 games, Marek over here was able to do that. However, in the other 3 games, he was able to score. He scored very closely to his opponents. I'm interested if we can see the raw scores here. I bet if we see pairings and we click on them, I think we can see what the raw scores are. 82-87. So he did win that one based on regular scoring. That one he 20-0'd. Jesus. He 10-10'd into Emperor's Children. Oh, yeah. He did lose that one by 5. And then he tied around 2. Okay, he won that one by 3. So he was really 4-1 when we look at the actual scores, but the differential score, he's undefeated 203. He was running Invasion Fleet. He was running basically, not entirely, but basically all monster Invasion Fleet. So he had Foot Hive Tyrant with a Venom Cannon. He had Nero Tyrants plus a Broodlord. We had 10 Genestealers for the Broodlord, so we have a little bit of an early game sort of skirmisher. You can push them out in the center to clear the middle of the table. Gargoyles plus Hormagaunts is a lot of disruption. So while those units are not particularly good at holding objectives for a long period of time, they can do it. If you keep them alive, you can use the 5+ Feel No Pain if they're taking just incidental shooting, and then you can use Endless Swarm to regenerate them back onto the table. In order to retain control of objectives. But it's a little inconsistent because 10 T3 5-up bodies will just get one-shot by a lot of stuff. There's a lot of activations that will just kill them. Once you get to 20 and you start stacking buffs on them, that's where it gets really almost impossible to reliably kill them. However, both of these units are incredibly fast. So the Hormagaunts are move 10, advance and charge. So they're able to, if you're physically body blocking out an objective, they're able to charge onto it and put 20 OC there. Assuming they can, charge something not super scary, they'll be able to survive. They have enough OC to contest the objective. And that's a lot of times what Tyranids want to do. They're going to hold their expansion. They're going to hold their home. They're going to try to push mid, and then they're going to keep you off your expansion objective a couple times. That's going to give them the leg up to win by the end of the game. And obviously we saw that happen where most of these games were within 5 points of each other, right? So all you're trying to do is ensure that you have consistent scoring, deny your opponent from having consistent scoring, and then just roll it out. We've got the Gargoyle units move 12. They can advance and shoot. And then once they shoot, they can move after shooting. You can also deep strike them if your opponent doesn't screen great. And that forces them to really aggressively screen their objectives. Otherwise, the Gargoyles can just come down and then move on to their objectives and take them. So kind of throws a wrench in your opponent's works. We have a Zoanthrope unit for the Neuro Tyrant, plus a Biovore for scoring, double Neurolictor, triple Exocrine, triple Maliceptor is the sort of the core of the list. So really just bullying the center objective with 1 billion Maliceptors. Let's go. The interesting thing as well is that we are running the Neuro Tyrant with the Zoanthropes. We do have a Foot Hive Tyrant, so he can give them assault, so they can advance and shoot. And you get the -1 to Battleshock checks for Shadow in the Warp. Plus, there's 2 Neurolictors. So anytime we force failed Battleshock checks on enemies, the Neurolictors can come in and they can pump all of those mid-strength guns from the Exocrines and the Maliceptors up to +1 to wound. So, equivalent of usually they're wounding most sort of heavy vehicles on 4s. And that's the point at which you start to get to be able to like drill through heavy armor, right? You start to actually threaten knights and things when you're just forcing so many 3 damage saves on them that eventually they'll go down. You don't necessarily need a lot of the a lot of like melee counterpuncher or super dedicated anti-tank if you can ensure that reliably you can in some cases get that +1 to wound. The other thing too is that we have this huge Genestealer unit which can sort of late game pretty hard if you don't need to push early, as because we talked about yesterday with Sam Pope's list, and this list is running a Broodlord, so it's even more dedicated to this game plan where you can't, if you critical 5 up these guys, give them lethal hits, right? They're forcing probably 20 saves on whatever it is. If you're Neurolictored, it's even more. And because of the Broodlord, some number of those saves automatically go through, right? Plus the Broodlord's got twin linked attacks. He could lethal, he's high AP, and then he's devastating as well with twin linked. So he himself is probably putting, I don't know, average of 3 to 4 mortal wounds onto something pretty reliably. So, good stuff. Good stuff, Chance. Let's go. We got one more. Got one more I want to talk about before we hop off. Of the Tyranids. I don't want to say we're leaving the video entirely. We have a familiar returning face in one of the larger events of the weekend. So we had a couple of larger events. We're going to hop over to Madness in the Middle, which is a 50-player GT. This is interestingly being held in the Netherlands. And we have a familiar face here, Amelia Pollard, who we've actually live streamed on this channel at Richmond Open last year. She showed up in the Netherlands, I guess, to compete in this GT. And she went 4-1 with Tyranids. And we've watched her play Invasion Fleet before. But she was playing in Synaptic Nexus, which is really freaking cool. We love that. Synaptic Nexus is neat. The cool thing about this, and I wonder if we're Screamer Killering it up. Here we are. Let's go. So we have a hyper-adapted Ravener unit with Psychostatic Disruption. Now, I believe, if I remember correctly, that is a -1. Oh, no, it's not. Just kidding. Psychostatic Disruption is a anti-Deep Strike Aura, I believe. It is, anti-Deep Strike Aura, and once per game, when you declare a unit will arrive from Strategic Reserve, you can prevent that unit from arriving on a 4+, which is a little bit strange. Bit of a weird one. But an anti-Deep Strike Aura is really good, especially because if the hyper-adapted Raveners hop into a regular Ravener squad, which they didn't, so it doesn't matter. I was going to say you could leave them on the table, sit them there, and prevent your opponent from setting up in your backline, and then redeploy them. We didn't do that, though. I guess these guys are just vibing. Prevents you from rapid ingressing near them, which is pretty cool. So I guess that's pretty neat. The other thing that we can do too in this case is force sort of mass battle shock checks. So we have double Neurolictors plus a Screamer Killer in this case. So anytime you fail a battle shock check, you are getting the +1 to be wounded from the Neurolictor, which is scary. And then you can also use Smothering Shadow to effectively grenade your opponent when they fail a battle shock check. If you're within 12 inches of a Synapse creature, they can roll 6 dice, and on a 3+, you take a mortal wound. So you average 4 mortal wounds, as they say, 4 mortal wounds for 1 CP. That works on the Neurolictor activation, that works on the Screamer Killer activation, and that also works on your Shadow in the Warp. Anytime that happens, in addition to normal battle shocks, then you're going to be able to trigger that stratagem. Now, sometimes you see this in combination with the Dirge Heart of Karis, which we're not taking today, which is a 9-inch leadership reduction aura. We didn't take that here, but it makes it almost guaranteed to trigger the Screamer Killer's effect, right? To trigger the Neurolictor's effect off of a Screamer Killer. Sometimes you can also see Death Leaper in this sort of combo. It's very difficult to key off. It requires that your opponent it basically only works on stuff that is directly in front of you. And so building all into it doesn't make a ton of sense, generally speaking. But you can stack up to a 3 to a battle shock check because the Screamer Killer forces a battle shock check at -1. You can reduce leadership characteristic by 1 with Death Leaper nearby, and you can stack that with a reduced leadership characteristic from the Dirge Heart. So you can get your even like a lead 6 opponent is failing on an 8. At that point, they need a 9 to succeed if they're normally a 6 up. So you can make it very, very extremely likely that they'll fail, and then you get +1 to wound against them and trigger all these effects as well. In this case, we're not necessarily going for that. We're just going for more of a standard build, but there's other cool stuff that Synaptic Nexus gets to do. The first thing, the Neuro Tyrant has Power of the Hive Mind, so it is +1 strength and AP. So it goes to strength 6, AP 2 damage. Do you mind? What? She doesn't appreciate the commentary, chat. I can't believe it. What are you doing over there? Just vibing. My poor chair. It doesn't deserve this treatment. So he's an incredible Overwatch threat. We have a Winged Hive Tyrant with Synaptic Control. That's -1 damage. So he's actually a little tanky, which is nice. We have a Biovore, double Lictor, 1 Moloch, double Neurolictor, double Norn Emissary. Now, the Norns have huge synergy here. You want to come hang out? Oh. Yeah. Okay. Wah. The Norns have huge synergy because they're Synapse creatures, so they get all the buffs. They can get reroll 1s to, or +1 to hit, excuse me. There's a stratagem for reroll 1s to hit and wound, targeting a single enemy. You kind of like, oh, you're extremely loud. You can kind of like oath the moment it, and the Norns being base ballistic skill 2, getting reroll 1s to hit is a big deal. In addition to that, you're going down. They can also get reinforced hive notes. They can get an Armor of Contempt sort of effect, and they can get +1 to hit, which is useful late game. It's actually not super useful. It's one of the Synaptic Nexus kind of combat doctrines you can select. It's actually not super useful on units like that typically. However, once you get to the late game, they start to get damaged. It's very difficult to kill an entire Norn, especially in this detachment, where they can get a Feel No Pain, their high basic characteristics, and they can Armor of Contempt. So they'll typically survive on a couple wounds, and then you can turn on +1 to hit, and they continuously hit on 2s. So it's a little bit of the same reason that they're good in Crusher Stampede with some extra steps, essentially. Grenade strat, too strong for Nids. Indeed. You're -1 for Synapse. So you are, to be fair, you only the Oath of Meowman. You only get -1 for Synapse on Shadow in the Warp explicitly. It doesn't work on any of your other triggers. So you are either -1 for the Screamer Killer shot, or you're -1. I was typically talking about the Screamer Killer attack, but you would be -1 or -2 in addition if you Shadow in the Warp people with the whole combo assembled, but it doesn't work on other Battle Shock checks. The Synapse -1 literally only works on Shadow, which is a little bit weird. I kind of wish that it worked on everything, but it is what it is. That's what they decided to do. We have a Screamer Killer, double terrain effects. Interesting, we're playing acid sprays on the terrain effects, which is actually fascinating. I guess if we can reliably trigger +1 to wound, or relatively reliably trigger +1 to wound, the acid sprays get pretty spicy because they auto hit. You can give them reroll 1s and they wound on 4s most of the time. Plus, you can fall back and shoot in the detachment, which is cool, I guess. It's actually wild. I guess I imagine that's the arithmetic, right? If you're relying maybe more heavily on your Norns and stuff to deal sort of anti-tank damage, the terrain effects can just kill other things. Oh man, Inky's so excited about all the boxes I just got. What a silly goober. The reroll went to hit, and when it goes for turning it within 6. Well, it also affects the synapse creature. So what you do is if you have like the Neurotyrant or the Norn Emissary inside like a formation, right? In the middle, you can target the Norn Emissary. It will give itself rerolls and then broadcast the rerolls to everything else. But generally speaking, what you want to be doing is giving it you're oftentimes using it for the Norns themselves. It will broadcast if you have like a bunch of guns hanging out with them, but unless both Norns are in the exact same place, usually it's only affecting the one thing, right? Gonna play 18 Blood Crushers at a Crusher Stampede? Absolutely, chat. 100%. It's honestly, Synaptic Nexus, pretty sweet. I think it's a little underpowered. A lot of the effects that it has, it's very cool. A lot of the effects it has require you to sort of jump through some hoops. Which is a little tough to get value out of. But that said, I don't know. There's definitely some power behind it. I'm interested in these hyper-adapted Raveners as well, because you can give +1 to hit to the Raveners, which I guess is the one thing that they're typically missing, because a lot of times they hit on 3s, so their actual attack characteristics are not that amazing. But with the bonus to hit and the reroll 1s, if you broadcast the sort of effect from them, then it can be good. I guess it also gives them a vulnerable save. I guess literally all of these Synaptic Nexus buffs are good for hyper-adapted Raveners. Now I'm looking at it. I don't know if I really consider them in a detachment, but it makes a lot of sense. It's pretty sweet. Good stuff. Anyway, chance. That's Amelia's list. 4 and 1 and a relatively larger GT. But I think what I'd like to do now is talk about some of the other detachments. Some of the other lists that did well in smaller table 40K. So these little events. Grab my events list, and we will grab some of these sub 20 player events and the stuff that won them. I saw some comments of people who are looking for the Drukhari breakdown from Stephen Box from Vanguard Tactics won an event with Drukhari. I have that released earlier today. So this event was actually, or this live stream was actually a little bit late. I do typically stream at 2 p.m. But because I was working on that video, I did it through last night and then this morning, then I had to, I ended up having to finish that later. There was also a couple of events that had X and 1s, but no undefeated. So let's hang on. Let's head on over to the GTC Compact and talk about some Space Wolves chants. So this was 18 players. I think 16 played at the end of the day in Germany. Ended up being won by Mario Tietz, who was playing Space Wolves. He was playing Stormlands Task Force. So he's Bjorn, Logan, Orjak, kind of the triumvirate. Sometimes Ragnar's in there, but usually Bjorn, Logan, Orjak is in like every Space Wolves list because they're amazing. Combi Lieutenant, and then interestingly, a Wolf Priest. Now, I wonder if we have the Wolf Priest in Wolfguard Headtakers. We do. We double Mastercrafted Power Weapon. So the big thing here is that your Lance stratagem in Stormlands Task Force doesn't work on infantry. It only works on mounted units. So you can only put it on the Thunderwolf Cavalry. However, he just has a built-in +1 to wound. So these guys naturally, they're a little bit faster than normal. They naturally advance and charge thanks to Stormlands Task Force. And then with a +1 to wound effect, they're swinging 36 plus the character's attacks. So 36 AP2 2 damage attacks plus he's swinging another, I think he's 5 at 5 1 2, all with +1 to wound. So 40 2 damage attacks with a +1 wound effect, which is pretty wild. We have double Thunderwolf Cavalry, plus the 6-man is has a greater chance of living through stuff, which means that he then gets to start respawning them. Now we have another unit of 3 which is a good trading piece. So the cool thing here, they're move 7, they can advance and charge, they're relatively fast, and that unit alone throws 18 attacks. So if you don't want to commit the bigger, heavier squads, right? We have Wolfen, we have Thunderwolf Cavalry, we have the big head taker squads, we have Terminators. All of these are very expensive. The head takers by themselves are just 90, I believe. So they're able to run in and just like very reliably like clip out 5 Space Marines and take your objective, essentially, is what they're going to try to do. So before you're exposing any of your more expensive bricks, you can send those guys in to just problem solve and to disrupt enemy objective scoring. The other thing, too, is that the 3-man brings a Hunting Wolf squad for much cheaper than the 6-man, because you have to bring the same number of Hunting Wolves as you bring head takers. You're not allowed to like mix and match. So if you were going to take a Hunting Wolf squad out of the big head taker unit, you'd have to pay the premium points for them. However, if we're paying the 3-man, it's just 20 points, I think, to get another unit of 3 Hunting Wolves. Now, the Hunting Wolves themselves are really bad. They don't do anything, really. But what they do is they can score objectives. And they don't get an OC bonus, or they don't get an OC value unless they are nearby a Space Wolf character. You have so many characters, things like Bjorn, things like Arjak and Logan, who are going to be taking up the middle of the table. All you have to do is string them back. And they have big oval bases, so it's really easy to do so. So you string them back to within 6 inches of that character. They gain the OC bonus, and suddenly they can do things like take objectives for secure no man's land. They can perform actions, all the normal stuff that you could typically do. We have Wolfguard Terminator Squad, double Wolfen plus double Storm Shield Wolfen as well. So just a bunch of little training units. The head takers, honestly, are like the most impressive part of the, beyond the Terminator bricks, I think. The head takers are the most impressive part of that Space Wolf Codex for me. And it was, I felt a little sad that there didn't feel like, outside of like maybe the Stormlance build with the character, or in some cases like Gladiator's Task Force builds, I was a little sad that there didn't feel like there was a perfect spot for them to go. There's like there's sort of a tension in the unit where you need, because they're only strength 5, you need a +1 to wound somewhere. You need an offensive buff, and you need advance and charge because they're not quite fast enough by themselves. And needing 2 things to be good is a little bit tough. But if we can get that for free from the detachment ability, plus the Wolf Priest can give them the +1, you can make get some work out of them. Just mass attacks is really cool for me. So really cool to me. I think that the unit's rules, and I don't think we see it enough. A lot of times people are focused on the Wolfen and things like that. Good stuff. There's more Space Marines to talk about. In fact, some spicier Space Marines. If we head on over to the Hoghammer 2 Day. This was 18 players. And this was in Longmont, Colorado. And was won by Colin K. And Colin was playing Salamanders, which is pretty sweet, in a Firestorm Assault Force. Now, we talked about a very spicy Salamanders list that actually won a GT this weekend. However, this one, it won a smaller event, right? Still 5 rounds, still went 5-0. However, the size of the event was a little bit smaller. This is a little bit more standard of a list than, based on what I would expect to see. But there's still some spice. There's a Phobos Lieutenant. There is also a Combi Lieutenant. But there's a Phobos Lieutenant who is the carbine guy who can move and who can shoot, move after shooting. And I'm curious. I'm interested to see how he gets used, to be honest. First of all, he's in Firestorm Assault Force. So, although I think he just has an assault weapon, so I don't think Firestorm does anything for him. Look, Phobos Lieutenant's gun is. Oh no, it's not assault. So he gains assault, so he can advance, shoot, move again. Right. So you can essentially move 2d6 plus 6 inches. If you're just using him to run around. And he's only 55 points. But that said, we have Adrax, a Judiciar with Champion of Humanity. So that's the Ignore Modifiers buff. So the entire unit is AP 2 damage with 1,000,000 attacks. Gets reroll once to hit, and then he ignores things like Armor of Contempt. He ignores the big one is damage reduction effect. So if you're half damage or -1 damage, he's like, no, not today. I'm just going to hit you with my sword. Thank you very much. Which is great. We have the 2 lieutenants that we talked about, plus Vulcan Heston. Now, the interesting thing is that we're all in on Blade Guard veterans to support the melee characters. So we have Adrax in one, and we have the Judiciar in the other one. We have 1 Impulsor to carry them around. And then the rest of the list is going to be in other heavy tanks. So we have Redeemer, Repulsor, plus Repulsor Executioner. So the Justiciar in one of these is really difficult to engage with if you're trying to shoot a transport and then fight him. The other thing that you can do, and I like this technology, is that you can, because he fights first, you don't want to charge into him. However, you can use Burning Vengeance to disembark after someone shoots your vehicle. So a lot of times what people do is they will post up to attack your vehicle. And if you're holding a brick of command points, sometimes it's a little bit tough in this detachment, but depends on the board state. If you're holding a bunch of command points and they shoot your vehicle, you can say, I'm going to Burning Vengeance, I'm going to disembark the Justiciar squad and shoot you with a pistol. And your opponent's like, that's fine. I don't care. And then they charge and you go, I'm going to intervene, fight first, and kill you. So the other thing too is that, like, if they have shot you with, with most of their activations, right? And you're still, and the vehicle's still alive, and they're posting up to charge it, you can simply disembark in front of it in order to prevent them from getting to the vehicle. And then, if it's a Justiciar, they can either choose to charge it or, to charge in, get intervened, and die. Or if they choose to charge it with something that can tank the Justiciar, you can, or tank whatever it is you're worried about. The Repulsor can rapidly embark those things as well. You also have a stratagem end of the fight phase to re-embark if you're holding the command points for it. So you can do so many weird transport things with this build. And Burning Vengeancing aggressively, I think, is the craziest one, which is why you want to play a Justiciar in Firestorm Assault Force to begin with. Beyond just like being able to eat a dead transport and then tank a charge, because he can fight first and kill most of the charging units, or charging models. Also being able to do that reactively in situations where you wouldn't necessarily leave the transport, or in situations where your opponent would potentially wrap the transport, is crazy. So a lot of times what it means is that you can push this vehicle up into the center and you can say, hey, don't shoot this or I'm going to mess up your whole turn. And when they come out of the transport with Burning Vengeance, they're not battle shocked, even if the transport later dies. So they can just hang out. They can just, they hold objectives and they can contest and things. So that little combo is really cool. It does require a lot of transport capacity to bring both that and the Adrex Akatone Blade Guard unit. But Adrex he's so incredibly solid in a Blade Guard veteran squad that you're probably never leaving that unit at home. They're just wildly powerful. They almost kill a knight on average if your powers are combined, because you can give them +1 to wound for a command point. They get full wound rerolls, so most of the time they're winning on 5s, full rerolling. Adrex is winning most things on hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, winning most things on maybe 4s, full rerolling everything. So he probably converts like 9 damage into whatever he's hitting, and then you have a million Blade Guard attacks with a million rerolls. And that's without Oath of Moment at all, which is what's beneficial for them. The Justiciar squad doesn't do quite as much damage, but the fights first is huge. We have Triple Eradicator squad to run around and blow up vehicles. Another good Burning Vengeance target. 5-man Infernus squad to make use of the bonus OC from Vulcan. 1 Invader ATV, all the transports, plus a scout squad. Pretty neat stuff. That is really cool. The Disembark Shoot Strat is amazing when you dump Vulcan on an objective and select it as home. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because the weird thing about Vulcan's latest data sheet is that his OC bonus triggers the first time he's set up on the battlefield. So previously, it was start of the first battle round. However, because he would be in a transport most of the time, you would have to keep him out of a transport and then run him into a transport, or run him up into the middle and then emergency or rapid embark him onto a transport for a command point. Otherwise, his ability wouldn't work. The timing window for him to choose the objective marker would be skipped if he started the game in a transport. If he was started in reserve, he was fine. But I think I don't remember if it had a battlefield sort of requirement. But the weird thing was, because you cannot use abilities while you're in transports, you couldn't do anything with it. That said, now you can do it on potentially your opponent's turn because you just start him in a transport and he's not set up on the battlefield until you disembark him from the transport, at which point his ability triggers and you can choose which objective. So you can see half the game before you choose which objective Vulcan is gonna OC10 on, which is wild. It's so crazy. It feels like a scam when you do it. And you're just like, I'm just gonna run this dude over, run onto this objective. Your opponent's like, well, I have like 5 intercessors there, and you're like, it's contested now because I decided this objective's mine. Or if you, like you said, Burning Vengeance to hop him out of a transport and then choose the thing for 10 OC. Pretty crazy. Absolutely insane. You'll love to see it. I wonder if there's like weird timing there too, because it's when you're set up on the battlefield, which means that I think it's simultaneous triggers with Overwatch. So if you get Overwatched before selecting your objective, I think that you would not get the 4+ Final Pain. Pretty funny. Because your opponent would sequence the Overwatch first. Anyway. Let's hop over. That's all the Space Marines I wanted to talk about today, I do believe. So we can dive into some more esoteric factions. There was an Eldar that won, but it's aspect host. Nobody really, who cares? There is some interesting sort of X1s from recent events. What's up, Kitty? If we go back to our Fun and Games GT. Connor Petzen went 4-1, took second place with Chaos Demons. Looks like he lost in the finals. Is that right? No. Who won? Sawyer Anderson? Yeah, I don't know if these are necessarily representative of the final game because it came down to tiebreakers. He's playing a Demonic Incursion. Oh, with the Kairos build. Okay. So it's Be'lakor, Bloodthirster with Argath, Great Unclean One, Kairos, Ronagus, Scarbrand, and a bunch of utilities. So he doesn't have the Lord of Change. It's 6 Greater Demons, but no Big Bird besides Kairos. Which is very interesting. I do think, the more I think about it, the more Kairos seems interesting to me. And the big thing that he does in this particular build is that he allows you to engage with all of your Great Unclean Ones at the same time. Or not your Great Unclean Ones, excuse me. All of your Bloodthirsters at the same time. Because the downside of Bloodthirsters is that they die to just a stiff breeze. They are blown away in the wind incredibly quickly. So you can never, under any circumstances, allow your opponent to combat interrupt into them. So you can't allow them to counter assault, which is tough because a lot of times what you're doing is you're trying to engage with, you're basically essentially all melee. And Kairos being able to tax interrupts allow you to hit with Scarbrand, like tax the interrupts so they can't do it, and then swing with the Bloodthirster as well. So you get both of your activations done. Plus it messes with your opponent's reactive effects. So if they have like hit penalties or Armor of Contempts, you can mess with them. Or in addition, the big thing is like saving throw rerolls against the Bloodthirsters because their each attack is so high value. They're like rerolling a 4+ vulnerable save could save an entire unit. However, if they fail it, you blow them up. So Kairos is kind of like he's vibing with the Bloodthirsters. The downside is that he doesn't do anything. He gets you command points, which is big. It opens up potentially fixed secondary play for this army. In many cases, you don't want to play fixed with it because it's actually not too bad at tactical secondaries. However, there are some cases where you would prefer to play fixed, so you don't have to have the or be required to do actions. So if you run into like a million big knights or something, where you would prefer not to have to sacrifice Greater Demons or activations to get out and do normal stuff, Kairos gives you command points back, and that's the biggest weakness of tactical secondaries for this, or fixed secondaries for this list. But the other thing too is that he lets you open up charge rerolls more easily. So a lot of times you'll be like, I need to pick up 6-inch deep strike something that's 2 CP. If I'm holding a charge reroll, I need 3 CP, which is more command points that you normally gain over the course of a round. But Kairos being able to grant you CP occasionally is helpful. 270 points for a guy who doesn't do any damage, though, is a little bit tough to swallow. So I do think it's definitely the call. We've doubled Beast of Nurgle and a Nurgling squad in there as well. Votann is the best faction. You see, fighting words there, chats. We can talk about Votann. There's a Votann in this event. Sean Martin over here went 4-1 with Votann. In a Hearthband I think it's kind of normal Hearthbane stuff. It's Call with Bastion Shield, so they please don't have high AP aura. We have a Memnir Strategist, Uthar the Destined, double Capricus Carriers, triple Brookier Thunder Canister cover, double Chthonian Berserks, Chthonian Earthshakers, a bunch of Hearthguard, 1 unit of 5, so we can do some sort of early game skirmishing, 1 big unit of 10 for Bastion Plate or Bastion Shield, double Hecaton Land Fortresses, double Urngen Jaegers. Interesting. So you get 2 little units of 5 plus 2 units inside Capricus Carrier, so you get a lot of it's just a ton of utility everywhere. That allows you to push back your opponent pretty effectively, so you can prevent them from screening the Hearthguard, or you can force them to push up to like overcommit into a carrier plus a unit of dudes, and then you can counterattack with the Hearthguard off of a Rapid Ingress, which is always nice. That's a good play pattern to sort of set up. So there you go. There's some Votann shit. What to talk about? Of those, let's see if there are any more undefeated lists that I haven't yet discussed. But I think those are all the big ones. So we can, if anybody wants to take a peek at a particular faction, we can do that. I think that's all the winners that actually submitted their list. Some of these events, because they're kind of smaller, they didn't have submitted lists, which blew my mind. Including that one we talked about earlier. Oh, we have a Genestealer Cult at 5-0, actually. Which is cool. So on Warbanner 12, which happened in New Zealand, shout out to the New Zealand meta, Chris Hackman went 5-0 with Genestealers in final day. So the +1 to hit when we're near, or when we're spotting with Tyranids, regular Tyranids. We have a Benefactus with Inhuman Integration. So that's sustained hits for his unit. So he's granting lethal. You're also gaining sustained. So you have both buffs active as long as you're shooting something near a Tyranid. Biophagus with Enraptured Damnation. One is... Hey, Stephen Rivera.
Stephen Rivera donated $10 through Super Chat. Thank you for the education content. First time catching you live.
Enraptured Damnation is no Overwatch. That's nice. Appreciate the Super Chat. Thank you, by the way. First time catching me live. Well, welcome in. Hope you're having a good time. Any Grey Knights? I don't think there's too much Grey Knights, but they did win a GT over the weekend. I talked about it in my video this morning. It was Sanctic Spearhead, actually. So not Banishers or Warpbane Task Force. It was the third one that people started to play, which is all vehicles, which is cool. We've got 1 Reductus Saboteur, Acolyte Hybrids, 1 unit of Neophytes, 1 unit of Auto Pistol Acolytes to farm command points. I've got a Goliath Truck. Who's carrying around that thing? Metamorphs. Hybrid Metamorphs. And they're attaching the Biophagus with no Overwatch. So they're only like T4 t-shirt guys. So being able to prevent Overwatches on them is huge, because otherwise you'll just cook them immediately. But that enhancement's actually sick in that particular army. Or in that particular unit. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Sanctic Spearhead did win. Go check out my video. We've got triple Achilles Ridge Runners, 1 unit of 2 individuals with Surga Bay Augur plus Mortar, so ignore cover plus the crossfire, indirect crossfire application. And then the big unit obviously can get +1 to hit from the final day ability, plus they have a spotter for +1 ballistic skill, so they hit on 2s, which is pretty sweet. Adelan Jackals ×2 Metamorphs, Pure Strange Genestealers ×2. And then allies, we have double Hyper-Adapted Raveners. So I guess the interesting thing is that like there's a pretty natural synergy between the hyper adapted and the rest of the army, because what you want to be doing is you want to be dumping stuff into your opponent's face, where you want to be dumping stuff near your opponent's units so that you can gain the +1 to hit against them. The hyper-adapted naturally want to be rapid ingressing and then pushing forward into melee. So having a unit that you're already moving up close to your opponent's army just turns on all your shooting. You can also like set up a situation where they engage in the same turn as the the hybrid metamorphs do. So you're gaining the +1 to hit bonus in melee as well. And I believe that there's also a stratagem that you get a bonus if you are you get full wound rerolls in melee for that unit if you are within 6 inches, if you target something within 6 inches of a Tyranid unit. So as long as if you have the hyper adapted pushing forward anyway, at the same time the hybrid metamorphs can actually go kind of crazy. So that puts them to what's the base profile? They're like 3 attacks at 512. They are base 3 attacks at 512. They get lethals from the Biophagus, right? Lethal hits. Then they get +1 2 hit and full wound rerolls. So a unit of 10 gets 32 attacks because the leader has an extra pair or an extra 2 attacks. So you should hand like 29, assuming you don't hit something that's T6 or higher. I guess you're handing them like 5 lethals. So you're making like 22-ish wound rolls with full rerolls. If you're winning on 5s, it's like close to 18 to 20, like between 17 and 20 saves or so, and AP 1 2 damage. Potentially AP 2 actually, because we can spang a crossfire off the enemy that unit. So if they hit T9, they go kind of crazy. If you hit anything tougher, it gets a little bit awkward unless there is a +1 to wound strat if that unit kills a Tyranid character, which does trigger off the hyper adapted Raveners, actually. Now I'm looking at it. So you can sort of trade them away into big stuff too. It works on I guess the Ravener Prime specifically. But what you could do is try to set up a situation where your opponent, you get the charge off and then you like engage something and your opponent can kill you with. You're like, oh no, don't attack me with that knight, Mr. Knight player man. Oh, what? I attacked you and then you killed me with the second knight? Oh, that's so bad. I can't believe it. No. Anyway. It is important to note, I think, that the Tyranids don't have synapse in this case, right? Because they don't. They should. I believe they don't, because they don't get the benefit of their army ability. I don't think. Yeah, you don't get the +1 strength if you're within 6 inches of a synapse creature, which means, that the hyper adapted being anti-vehicle is actually very relevant, because while normally they go to strength 6 and they win most vehicles on 5s. Because they are anti-vehicle 5, it actually matters.
Bucket of Steel Cable donated $6 through Super Chat. Did you see that Captain Akron and Brother Chinkin
Bucket of Steel Cable, thank you for Super Chat. I did see that. It was in a Warhammer community article, right? Somebody posted on my Discord about it. I can't find the article where they said it. I guess we can look. Here's Warhammer community. I guess somebody linked it to me. No, I don't remember which one it is. Is it this one? How did Titus become captain of the 500 or of the second company? Wait, Kato Sicarius got like eaten? Didn't he get a new miniature? His service came to an end on the hive world of Trig. Dude, if I had $1 for every career that ended on Trig, that would be a lot, I think. Trigonometry professors are no joke. Akron led a strike force to investigate, accompanied by other Chiron. There was a Genestealer cult, and they all died. Good job, Genestealer cults, I guess. It is a little bit weird. I do find it, like the Captain Akron thing is like a little bit strange because, like, I don't know, they just made him. He's like a weird character because they're just like, oh, here's the Shadow Spear Captain, and also now he's a named character, and you're like, is he? Because he's just a model that you made, and then like I guess decided he was a special character. It's kind of like the Death Guard guy, the Lord of Contagion guy, who was like, oh, I'm a special character, and then at one point they're just like, no, you're a Lord of Contagion now. You're the only Lord of Contagion, except in reverse, right? They're like, here's the Phobos captain, and also now he's a named character. I always thought he was a little bit strange. It was weird that like you go into Space Marine 2 and you're just being given orders by the Phobos captain, like the miniature that's in the box. And I was like, that's weird. And then like, I don't know, they killed off Chiron like randomly alongside him. Kill off that guy? Sure, I get it. He's not a real character. Brother Chiron was a character. And it's like, I don't know. It's a little sus, I guess. That they like killed off Chiron off screen, but like Gadriel's still hanging out. And then they replace Chiron with Metoran or whatever the axe guys or the blade guard guy's name is, who left his axe at home, which is weird. It just, I don't know. It feels strange. It's a weird situation. The original Gravis captain is now a named character? What? Find it kind of fun that they're killing more main characters in Classic 40K. I do. I don't disagree with that. It sounds like I have a sneaking suspicion like a lot of this lore is going to be fleshed out right in the actual books. Because he does this whole thing where it looks like he's like he's activating anti-atomic lockdown protocols. So he's like he's nobly sacrificing himself. Anti-atomic lockdown pro. I don't even know what that means, but I guess the idea is that he's been overrun. Although it does say he was nobly sacrificed. Does it say he died? No body means, he could come back. Who knows? Could have made it endless versus GSC. Well, they'd have to make GSC at that point, right? That'd be like a whole extra thing. Super Harith is curious about the Phobos Lieutenant. No, I love the Phobos Lieutenant. I'm not curious about him. I just love that he's in there. Congrats on the win, by the way. I think the Phobos Lieutenant's one of the. It's a real Space Marine sort of problem where, in any other army, the Phobos Lieutenant would be the most widely played unit, and everyone would complain about him. But because Space Marines have so many like identical utility units, you're like, well, I could take this guy, or I could take the Combi Lieutenant, or I could take a Scout Squad, or I could take an Incursor Squad, or I could take spend a little bit more points and take a JPI Squad. And you're like, which of those million units am I going to play? And that little idiot, right? He like deep strikes and reactive moves. That's like, or shooting scoots. That's like an insane utility piece. And just nobody plays him. But I love him. Every time I see him in a list, I'm like, this is sick. He's always so cool. Little tech guy. I think 40K would be better off with more cool characters like that. Yeah, infiltrate, scout, deep strike, move 6. Just kidding. Yeah, yeah. It's like so crazy. It is so wild. You're like, there are many factions that would be like, "Thank you, I'll take 3," and then we would be like, "Dude, this unit's crazy," but only because it's Space Marines, we don't see it, and especially in the advance and shoot detachment, right? Because then like now suddenly his ability to access areas of the table is wild because he'll just go for days and like run up and grab them. A horror game with Akron and Chiron fighting through GSC? Games Workshop, it feels like they fumble the bag a lot on Genestealer Cults, because I feel like in a lot of situations they could very easily make Genestealer Cult into the primary antagonist of a game, and the only time they've ever done it, to my recollection, I've never played it. I haven't played like a lot of the role playing games and stuff, but the only time like they've ever done it has been Space Hulk. And even then it was like they're Genestealer cultists because it's a Space Hulk game and you're fighting Genestealers, and like the cultists are sort of tangentially also related. So there's a couple of them as like the basic mooks, but it's mostly the Genestealer show. You could make a Genestealer cult as like a opposing force, I think, pretty easily. Everyone kept wondering like when Darktide would introduce Genestealer cultists, because like it would be so easy. You could just have a Genestealer cult be there too. But I don't know. That feels like it would confuse people a little bit. There's a game called Deathwatch Overkill. I've never heard of that. What is that game? Oh, the board game. Yeah. I mean, the board games are whatever. The board games are just miniature games with extra steps, right? Isn't that where a lot of that stuff came from? But I mean, primarily in video games, in like sort of other media. They did they showed up nicely in Angels of Death. That was pretty cool. But the weird part, the part I didn't like about it was that they were like very cartoonish in Angels of Death. Which is, I guess, like, to be fair, that's what 40K is. 40K is just an anime where everyone like yells, and is like really just everyone's a stereotype. But I feel like you could make the Genestealer cult to be like a tragic villain, you know? Like, honestly, the Primus has a point. Also, he has 3 arms and is like, committing human sacrifices, but at the same time, he's trying to overthrow an oppressive regime. And that feels, we can understand that before he gets eaten by a Maliceptor. But they don't do that. They just make them like mustache twirling villains, which always doesn't feel that great. I don't know. It is what it is. Haven Games, you have Phobos Lieutenant in your Raven Guard Shalimar talent leading infiltrators. Oh, incursors. Okay. Yeah, I like it. He's cool in incursors because then you can. The awkward part about incursors is that a lot of times they're like, shoot, give +1 to hit, immediately die. But he's just like, hey guys, we can actually do it a couple times. We can sort of repeat the benefit several times. I think a lot of times though, I find that like incursors, you kind of want to commit in because it's your go turn whenever they're activating, but not 100%. Want to see a game where you play as or against Genestealers. Then at the end, Tyranids showed up. And you just get eaten. The final level is like you fighting against an endless horde of Tyranids. That actually sounds amazing. What kind of game would that be? I could see that. That would be a fun like some sort of like worker management game. You know what I mean? Because like Genestealer cults are interesting a lot of times because they're just like faceless hives of like billions of people, and I'm sure there's a lot of interesting like, grain strategy style games where it's all about like base construction and stuff instead of necessarily being like some sort of shooter, which doesn't feel quite as interesting as a Genestealer cultist. Anyway, Chance. Are there any other events that we want to talk about? A roguelike game where you see the stars in your cultist? Like, what is it? Like, Sunless Skies? Where, like, every time you die, it's just, like, your descendant comes back in. And we get to, hop out and talk about that. Oh, shit. Chance. We had a Forgefather Seekers go X1. So we can talk about the Armored Komodo GT, which was only 16 players. But it did go 5 rounds. It did go to not a single undefeated, so because they had more players than they had rounds, they ended up with multiple X1s. So, RDSJ played Forgefathers, which is cool. We were just talking about Salamanders. We can talk about Salamanders, but also It's in Forgefather Seekers, the actual Salamander detachment, which is sweet. The difference with Forgefather Seekers is that you get better sort of like what's the word? You get more reliability. You're able to fall back and shoot with Wrathful Inferno with your infantry, which obviously for the regular Firestorm Assault Force doesn't do. So once your Infernus Marines get stuck in, you just live there forever. You also get advance and perform actions with Infernus Marines. Yeah, advance and perform actions. Oh, and shoot or I guess shoot and perform actions. So, with all the Inferno squads, everyone else gets the normal Firestorm Assault Force bonuses, though. The downside is that we lose Rapid Embarkation and we lose Champion of Humanity, which are the two big benefits. So you trade both of those for some slightly superior Inferno squads plus fall back and shoot, which is like a side grade. Although most of the time the Forgefather Seekers benefits are a little bit better. This includes, let's see, we have an Aggressor squad. No attachments for them, so they're just vibing. Sometimes you see a captain in here, so you get Immolation Protocols for 1 CP. We've got 2 units of Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, a Blade Guard Veteran squad, that's for Adrax to hang out with. Crucible of Battle still in this one. Yeah. So we can still give them +1 to wound. Double Assault Intercessors for Disruption. Company Heroes, that's for Vulcan to hang out with. Once he gets -1 to be wounded, plus a 4+ Feel Pain, plus a 2+ armor save, plus Armor of Contempt, he actually gets really tough to kill. He's kind of incredible, incredibly survivable. We have 2 Gladiator Valiants. That's crazy. Assault on those things is great. They have a Strength 12 last cannon shot too, so going to Strength 13 is a big deal once you get within 12. Excuse me, they're only Strength 10. So going to Strength 11, I guess, is not as big of a deal, but it is good. It's Strength 10 Twin Linked on the last talent, and then it has 2 sets of Multi-Meltas, and you can get wound rerolls from Vulcan on the Multi-Meltas. So it's a good sort of Melta delivery system. Plus, they get +1 to hit, so they don't necessarily need, if they target monsters or vehicles, so they don't necessarily need Oath of Moment quite as much. We have an Infiltrator squad for the back line. A pair of regular Land Raiders. +2 Stormspeeder Hammer Strikes. The Hammer Strikes are amazing because they can get the +1 strength really easily. They can just like deep strike into places, flip cover off something, and then just melt the destroyer or something else with rerolls from Vulcan and +1 strength and everything. So that's great. Once you start to get like, if you oath something and just drop 2 Hammer Strikes on it in this detachment, it just super dies. Because you're hit rerolling, and then you can be wound rerolling and +1 strength and +1 to wound. So a lot of times you're winning on 3s or 4s, full rerolls, hit and wound, with 6 Melta shots, which for only 250 is great. Plus they like, yeah, they're it's just a good unit. I don't know. I guess plus then they can flip cover off something and you can shoot with the Valiants. Gladiator Valiants, that's wild. Who are we carrying around? I guess 1 Land Raider gets the Aggressors, and 1 can get the Blade Guard Veterans and Company Heroes. Regular Land Raiders are 220. Regular Land Raiders are the same as Crusaders. That's wild. That's actually crazy to me. They are. There's got to be like a mass Land Raider list, right? It has to. That has to work. They're so cheap nowadays. I'm gonna play it. There's a Black Crusade coming up. Do I play 6 Land Raiders? That has to be good. Rogue Trader had GSC as the first expansion. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I haven't played any of the Owlcat games. Even though there's a new one coming out, and I should probably play it. I should play it for the T-Rex channel at least. But I haven't yet. I know we talked about the Triple Land Raiders on Monday. I've talked about Mark Hurdle's list a million times. Hell, I've streamed Mark Hurdle's list. But like I'm talking, that's like 3 Land Raiders. That's child's play. I'm talking 6 or 7, chat. 3 Land Raiders is for chumps. I mean a truly meaningful number of Land Raiders. which I think could probably be okay, because holy shit, do you get so many of them? They're 220 points for a 2+ save and 16 wounds and 1,000,000 gunshots. There's got to be something in there, right? Am I crazy? That's a weird way to say 9. Can you fit 9? Is that legal? Because it's, what, 1320 plus, what's the Redeemer? 260? 270. So it's 1320 plus 810. No, I don't think that fits. Yeah. You super duper cannot play 9. 6 seems very reasonable. 7 seems fine. 8 you could do, I guess, technically. It would probably not be amazing, but you could probably do 8. Awkwardly, I'm a little worried. I don't know what the if they can fit on out of reserves easily. They might be too big. I have to double check. I can't remember the dimensions. I think the Redeemer can, because it's slimmer. I don't know if the Las Cannon guys can. If you can put them in reserve, I think that list is probably actually fine. And then you have something that like counterpunches in melee pretty well. I bet that's pretty good, chat. 6 in a Storm Raven. You could do 6 in a Storm Raven. That's only like 2,500 or 1,500 points. 1,600, I guess. You certainly could do that. The Flying Land Raider. That's a wild list. Double Godhammer Panzer Land Raiders. I think people underestimate the power, because you always look at like a Redeemer and you're like, advance and shoot on a 12-inch range flamer is huge. I will finally be able to get this thing in range. And then you don't really recognize the fact that being able to cut corners on a long-range gun by advancing sideways is actually super powerful. So getting like Lancers, or in that case, Las Cannon Land Raiders with the bonus movement is huge. The other thing too is that once you get close to people, you go to strength 13 and you shoot 4 gunshots out of them that wound T12s on 3s. And then if you oath it, you wound them on 2s, which is pretty good. I don't know. I think that's pretty solid. Out of all, after 100 games of Necron OBS and failing, I'm going to put him down for a little recharge. Play some Vanguard. Oh boy. Hope you go first. Vanguard Onslaught. I think Vanguard Onslaught does look cool, but I don't know. It feels so hoop jumpy. After they nerfed Surprise Attack, I was like out of it. I basically bounced from the whole faction. Because that was the one fun thing you could do where you could just like force 7 battle shock checks on people to trigger the Neurolictor effect. And then once they were like, no, you can't do that anymore, I was like, why am I even here, man? Just keep nerfing that dumb army. Doing actions of the Land Raider is funny. Listen, I've been doing actions with 300-point demons. The Land Raider is practically a utility unit at this point. All right, chance. Well, I'm probably going to wrap the stream up momentarily here, unless we have any other factions that we want to take a peek at from any of these events that we've covered today. We talked about a million different Space Marine builds. There's a list that literally doesn't have a detachment. How's this one for... Which detachment is this, chat? Somebody tell me. Could be anything. Could be Ironstorm Spearhead. There's a lot of vehicles. Could be Firestorm Assault Force. Could be Gladiator Task Force. I don't know. That's wild. We straight up just didn't put it down. Sometimes you do that, but like there's an enhancement. This list has no enhancements. It's mostly epic heroes. That's fucking nuts. 3 Calgars. So many Calgars. Maybe they play without a detachment. Could you imagine? That'd be amazing. So we want to look at Astro Militarum. If I can find any. Astro Militarum is a little low play rate right now. There's a 3-2 from Hoghammer. Let's look at some of the GTs. We'll look at Broadsword. It's always cool to talk about these little smaller events, because I do think that's where most of the, most 40K gets played, at those little smaller events. There's a 4-1 at Broadsword Wargaming, so this is a major. A very big event. Ben Keogh went 4-1 with Astra Militarum. Combined arms with a Krieger command squad. All right. We have God's Ghost, Krieg command squad with Grand Strategist. So extra orders? Extra orders? What, can he even issue orders? He has oh, I guess he just gets an order. Okay. And then once per game, he can issue an additional order, and then the enhancement gives him an additional order. Okay, so he can order 3. It's interesting that he's not restricted on his orders he can give, because he is a commissar. So normally the commissars only issue fixed bayonets and duty honor, but I guess he's just a guy. A Lehman Rush tank commander. What? That's crazy. That's crazy. They still have their 2+ shoot on death. Double Rogel Dorn tank commanders. 10 man of Death Corps, 20 man of Death Corps, probably where we're putting the officer. Oh, actually, maybe we're not. Actually, we might just run those guys and have the officer be a order battery from the back line. Because the 10 man lets him then use the master box inside his unit. Oh, actually, no, you don't need that, right? He could just vibe. If it's in the same unit, right? The master box just works. It's if you need an attachment if you're dual attaching, but these guys could just be hanging out. Am I wrong about that? Actually, I'm gonna fact check. Yeah, no, each time an officer in the unit issues an order. Yeah, so he could just be hanging out by himself in the back line and issuing 3 24-inch orders a turn. That's pretty good. Double Chimera and a Taurox. Rough Riders, Hellhound, Kazarkin ×2, Krieg Combat Engineers, Ratlings, Scout Sentinels. So the normal rush, I think this is basically just like the heart of the list, right? You get the one big Krieg brick that's going to run up the table, and then you push forward with scouting vehicles, and then they run, disembark the unit at the end. Like they get moved. You have 1 million tank orders in this list. They disembark the infantry order themselves. You can drop Gonskos next to them, order an additional order, blow people up. Force your opponent to come back and attack that, and then that opens them up to get shot by the guns. It's like the classic play pattern for Astra Militarum. I think basically every build of Astra Militarum kind of runs the same thing, even if it's doing it in slightly different ways, right? Whether it's like Hammer of the Emperor, where you're trying to push faster with the transports, or it's the mobile infantry, one mechanized infantry, where you can you hit it harder when you disembark the vehicles. They're all basically doing the same combo, which is neat. Well, there you go, Chance. Want to look at Black Templars? Let's see if we can find some Black Templars. I'm sure there's some Black Templars over here. In fact, literally the next placement is Black Templars. Is there interesting Chaos Demons? Bro. Oh, okay. I know what's up. I saw Chaos Demon. I was like, this is exciting. But it was actually Chaos Knights, and I misread. Peter Gelfie went 4-1 at Broadsword with Black Templars. Gladiator Task Force. It's a bunch of Castellans and Marshals, chats. High Marshal Helbrecht, Combat Lieutenant, Double Marshal, Double Castellan, Emperor's Champion. No enhancements whatsoever. Who needs them? Enhancements are for chumps. That's what I've been saying for the last 3 years. We have an Assault Intercessor Squad, an Impulsor, so for the Emperor's Champion most likely. An Impulsor, Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, 1 Gladiator Reaper. It's interesting. I guess the idea being that, like, if we're just punching lethal hits into big stuff, the Reaper being able to clear little stuff is good. Plus, well, you don't get Oath, right? And I don't think the Black Templars Gladiator does anything special. He's just a guy. I assume he just has rotating death. Yeah. Oh, it's called a Reaping Tally. Okay. Anyway. On the Black Templars one, anyway. Weird. But that's interesting. So usually he's really good because of the interaction with Oath of Moment, because you can be sustained 2 rerolling, so he gets 1,000,000 hits. I mean, I guess he's he's just inconsistent without rerolls, but he's not bad, right? He should basically be handing your opponent like 10 saves on most infantry units, and a lot of those are going to be devastating. We've been an Infiltrator Squad, Double Executioner, Scout Squad, Triple Sword Brethren. So we're getting Halbrecht has a Sword Brethren unit. And then we have Castle and Marshal combos in the other 2. Plus a Calidus Assassin. Gladiator Reaper's a fascinating pick there. I guess it was like a situation where you're like, hey man, I don't want to... The actual attack volume from the Sword Brethren isn't super high, right? The unit itself only swings 12 times, and then the characters add like another... it's like another 12, right? So it's like 24 attacks total. So if you're swinging into like, 10 idiots, you don't really want to be having to put those like really high value attacks there. So, and then the Repulsor Executioners are great, but a lot of their shooting's like really trashy, right? It's just like strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. And so having a slightly higher value anti-infantry gun is good. He's good into heavy infantry too, which I guess could be a blind spot. Because a lot of your attacks are like strength 5, AP 2. So if you're running into like Terminators that are Armor of Contempted, you actually bounce a little bit. And the Reaper's just like, I don't know, I'm going to pick 2 of them up. I don't give a shit. What's your toughness? Well, yeah, that's right. I don't care. That's interesting. I actually love the Reaper. It's just interesting in the context of not having Oath of Moment, which is wild. Any Tyranid list with Harpies? I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. The Partisan GT was one with Guard? What's the Partisan GT? Is it this one with 6 players? That's very low. I did not recognize that one. But there's one with 6 players that's being held at Partisan games. Anyway, chats. We did go over a GSC list, actually, yeah. A little while ago. And we talked about GSC quite a bit. We talked about how GSC are killing Space Marine characters. How dare they? How dare they? I think that's going to be it for me today, chat. Gonna go ahead and pop off. I'll be back around tomorrow. Normal time. Should be the same scheduled stream time. I have 2 streams going on tomorrow. The first one, we're going to talk about a new and exciting thing that people are trying to start over in the Warhammer competitive subreddit. It's got people really polarized. It's a sportsmanship reporting system for Warhammer 40K. And I don't know. It's going to be an interesting discussion. I think it's going to be... I think it's fascinating. I'll talk about it tomorrow. It's gonna be, people are gonna have opinions. The other thing too is that immediately after that, I'm playing Jensen Go, who's a WCW player. He just got back from his World Championship trip, and we're playing in the Pat's Victory Teams event. He's playing Orcs. I'm playing Demons. Yeah, we'll see how that game goes. I'll probably get rolled over, but should be fun. I'm excited. That'll be on Twitch tomorrow evening around 4 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So like exactly 24 hours from now, just about. But yeah, until then, I'll see you there. So I'll go ahead and pass you on over to tomorrow's stream. I'll see you. I'll be live there. So have a good one, everyone. Keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming. Oh, don't forget to check out CaptainCon.com. And you can get 10% off. Coupon code TT2026 on that one. So I'll see you then. Cheers, everyone.